Throughout this brief and bewildering life, you will encounter countless souls. Some will touch you with the gentleness of dawn breaking. Others will etch their teachings deep into your marrow. But when the masses fade away, when even devotion grows quiet and the world dims to shadow, there exists one consciousness that never wavers you. The most profound promise you will ever honor begins in that silent instant when you decide to remain at your own side. When you release yourself from the prison of past errors, when you speak softly to yourself and say, "I have not given up on who I am," even as your words tremble in the dark. No other being can inhabit your moments. No other consciousness can make your choices, claim your boundaries, or live inside your truth. This is your sovereign territory. You cannot control the chaos that others bring to your doorstep, but you hold absolute dominion over how you meet it, whether to remain or depart, whether to stand or surrender, whether to welcome or reject this authority, both tender and terrifying in its completeness, forms the very pulse of your liberation. Loving yourself is not an indulgence reserved for the fortunate. It is the flame you must hold steady as you walk through uncertainty. The heat that prevents your spirit from going numb when existence turns harsh and unforgiving. It is the sacred oath to never desert your own presence, regardless of who else vanishes from your world. You are worthy of devotion that celebrates the authentic core of your being, not devotion that requires you to diminish yourself to earn approval. You are worthy of allegiance that understands you without explanation, that knows your silence as deeply as your words, but before such recognition can find you from the outside, you must extend it to the witness living behind your eyes. Here is what most people never grasp about self-love. It is not narcissism. It is not spiritual bypassing. It is not pretending you have no shadow or denying the places where you still bleed. Self-love is the radical acceptance that you are both the wound and the medicine, the question and the answer, the chaos and the calm. It is choosing to stay present to your own unfolding, even when that unfolding feels unbearably slow or painful or confusing. This is where the quantum shift begins. The moment you stop abandoning yourself, reality has no choice but to respond differently. Let me tell you what happens in the field when you make this choice. When you genuinely decide to stop betraying your own heart, you emit a different frequency, not metaphorically. Actually, your nervous system shifts out of survival mode. Your energy stops scattering in 1,000 directions, seeking external validation. You become coherent. And coherence is magnetic. It draws toward you the experiences, people, and opportunities that match the vibration of self-worth. Not because you are manifesting from lack or desperation, but because you have become the frequency you were always meant to embody. Most people spend their entire existence trying to earn love from sources that were never designed to give it. They perform, they shrink, they twist themselves into shapes that hurt, and still, the validation never comes. Or when it does, it arrives hollow and conditional. This is not failure. This is the universe showing you where you have been directing your energy incorrectly. Every moment you spent seeking approval from someone who could not see you was a moment you were being called back home to yourself. The pain was not punishment, it was redirection. Here is the truth that changes everything. You cannot receive what you refuse to become. If you do not offer yourself loyalty, you will not recognize it when it arrives from another. If you do not speak kindly to your own heart, you will doubt every kind word that reaches you. If you do not honor your own presence, You will accept relationships that treat you as optional, forgettable, convenient. The outer world is always reflecting the inner agreement you have made with yourself. Not sometimes, always. So when the night presses down heavy and your heart loses sight of its value, place your palm against your chest and feel the rhythm there. Remember, you are the oldest friend you have ever known, the most devoted protector you have ever encountered, the only home you will carry through every season of your life. Do not abandon the consciousness that remained when all others disappeared. Do not betray the part of you that kept breathing when breathing felt impossible. That part of you is holy. That part of you is the gateway. But here is where it gets interesting. The act of choosing yourself is not a one-time event. It is not a single declaration made once and then forgotten. It is a practice, a returning, a daily, sometimes hourly, commitment to remain present to your own experience without judgment, without escape, without the numbing distractions that the modern world offers so readily. Every time you feel the pull to abandon yourself for someone else's comfort, and you pause, and you choose to stay with your truth, instead, you are rewriting the code. You are teaching your nervous system a new language. You are telling reality that you are no longer available for experiences that require your self-betrayal. This is not selfish. Let that land. Choosing yourself is not the same as choosing against others. It is choosing for the highest version of what is possible between you and another human being. Because when you show up whole, when you show up without the desperate need for validation, when you show up rooted in your own worth, you give others permission to do the same. You become a mirror that reflects back their own potential for self-love. You stop participating in the collective agreement that says we must all be broken and seeking and never quite enough. Take a moment and comment below with this phrase: I choose to remain at my own side, not as a casual interaction, as an energetic declaration, as a conscious interruption in the pattern of self-abandonment that has been running in your system for far too long. Your words are not just symbols on a screen. They are signals to the quantum field. They are commitments that your consciousness registers and begins to organize around. So speak it, claim it. Let the field hear your intention. What happens when you genuinely make this choice is that your tolerance for mistreatment drops to zero. Not from a place of anger or bitterness, but from a place of clarity. You simply cannot unsee what you have seen. You cannot unknow what you now know. You cannot return to relationships or situations or patterns that require you to dim your light, silence your voice, or pretend your needs do not matter. The cost becomes too high. The dissonance becomes unbearable, and so you begin to move differently through the world. You begin to speak differently. You begin to choose differently. Not because you are trying to manifest some idealized future, but because you are finally aligned with the truth of who you are. This alignment is what people sense when they say someone has changed or something is different about you. What they are sensing is coherence. They are sensing that you are no longer fractured, no longer sending mixed signals to the universe, no longer saying yes when you mean no, or staying when you mean to go, or loving when you mean to protect. You have become singular in your intention. You have chosen yourself. And reality, which has been waiting patiently for this moment, begins to rearrange itself around your new frequency. People will not always understand this shift. Some will resist it. Some will try to pull you back into the old patterns where you were easier to control, easier to predict, easier to keep small, this is not their fault. This is fear. Fear of change. Fear of losing access to the version of you that served their comfort. But you are not responsible for managing other people's fear. You are responsible for honoring the sacred covenant you have made with yourself. You are responsible for remembering that every time you betray yourself to keep the peace, you are choosing violence against your own soul. Let me say that again because it is crucial. Every time you abandon your truth to avoid conflict, to keep someone comfortable, to prevent abandonment, you are enacting violence against yourself, not physical violence, spiritual violence. The kind that erodes your sense of self slowly, imperceptibly, until one day you wake up and realize you cannot remember who you were before you learn to disappear. This is the most insidious form of self-betrayal because it feels like love, it feels like sacrifice, it feels like care. But it is none of those things. It is fear masquerading as devotion. True devotion, true love, does not ask you to erase yourself. It does not require your silence. It does not demand that you minimize your needs or apologize for taking up space. True love, whether from yourself or another, expands you. It invites your full presence. It celebrates your voice. It honors your boundaries as sacred, and if what you are experiencing does not meet this standard, it is not love. It is attachment. It is need. It is fear. And you are allowed to release it. Here is what no one tells you about releasing what no longer serves you. It will feel like death at first, because in a way, it is. It is the death of the identity you built around being needed, being useful, being the one who always gives. It is the death of the story that says your worth is measured by how much you can endure, or how much you can offer, or how little you require in return. And death, even when it is necessary, even when it is clearing space for new life, is never comfortable. Your system will panic. Your mind will create 1,000 reasons why you should go back, why it was not that bad, why you are being too sensitive or too demanding or too much. But this is the old program running its final desperate loops. This is the part of you that is terrified of change, even change that serves you, even change that saves you. Breathe into this. Feel it in your body. Notice where you contract when you imagine standing firm in your worth. Notice where you collapse when you imagine saying no without explanation. Notice where you go numb when you imagine walking away from someone who does not honor your heart. These places of contraction, of collapse, of numbness, these are the places where your self-love practice must focus. These are the wounds asking to be met with compassion, not abandoned with shame. If this resonates with you, if something in these words is touching a truth you have been circling for a long time, then I invite you to subscribe not just to this channel, but to this frequency, to this commitment, to this ongoing conversation about what it means to live from the inside out instead of the outside in. Subscribe not for entertainment, but for remembrance. Subscribe because you are ready to stop abandoning yourself and start building a life that reflects your inherent worth. This is not about accumulating content. This is about staying connected to a space that reminds you who you are when the world tries to convince you otherwise. The moment you choose yourself, you also choose a new timeline. This is not metaphorical language. This is quantum mechanics. Every choice you make collapses infinite possibilities into one actualized reality. When you were choosing self-abandonment, you were collapsing into timelines that reflected that frequency. Relationships that mirrored your lack of self-worth. Opportunities that reinforced your belief that you were not enough. Experiences that kept you small and safe and perpetually seeking. But the instant you choose differently, the instant you choose to honor yourself as sacred, you collapse into a different set of possibilities. Timelines where you are met with respect. Timelines where your boundaries are honored. Timelines where your presence is celebrated, not tolerated. This is why the work is internal before it is external. You cannot manipulate your way into a better reality. You cannot perform your way into genuine love. You cannot strategize your way into a life that feels aligned. The shift must happen at the level of frequency first, at the level of identity, at the level of the story you are telling yourself about who you are and what you deserve. Once that shifts, once you genuinely embody the truth of your worth, the external world has no choice but to reflect that back to you. Not because you are controlling reality, because you are finally in harmony with it. Most people resist this truth because it places responsibility squarely in their own hands. It is easier to blame circumstances, other people, bad luck, the universe being unfair. It is easier to stay in victim consciousness because victim consciousness requires nothing of you except endurance. But sovereignty, true sovereignty, requires you to own your power, to acknowledge that you have been participating in your own diminishment, often unconsciously, and that you also have the power to stop. This is not blame, this is liberation. Because if you have been creating this, even unconsciously, you can also create something different. So what does it actually look like to choose yourself in the day-to-day moments? It looks like pausing before you say yes when your body is screaming no. It looks like speaking your truth even when your voice shakes, even when you fear the response. It looks like removing yourself from spaces and relationships that consistently dishonor your heart, even when leaving feels terrifying. It looks like spending time alone without filling the silence with distraction, without numbing the discomfort, without running from the parts of yourself you have been avoiding. It looks like treating yourself with the same kindness you so easily extend to others. It looks like ending the war within. Because here is what most people miss. The harshest critic you will ever face is the one living inside your own mind. The cruelest judge. The most unforgiving accuser you speak to yourself in ways you would never speak to another human being. You hold yourself to standards that are impossible to meet. You punish yourself for mistakes that others have long forgotten, and this internal violence, this constant self-attack, creates a frequency of unworthiness that permeates everything you do, every choice you make, every relationship you enter. You cannot feel worthy of love when you are at war with yourself. You cannot attract respect when you do not respect your own boundaries. You cannot build a life of peace when your inner world is a battlefield. Choosing yourself means calling a ceasefire. It means laying down the weapons you have been using against your own heart. It means looking at the parts of yourself you have been rejecting, the parts you have deemed unlovable or too much or not enough, and choosing to welcome them home. All of them. The messy parts, the angry parts, the needy parts, the parts that still carry wounds from childhood, the parts that made mistakes you wish you could undo, the parts that feel too sensitive, too intense, too different. Every single part of you is asking for the same thing: to be seen, to be held, to be told that it belongs. Drop one word in the comments that captures the energy you are choosing as you move forward from this moment. One word that represents the transformation you are claiming. Not a word that sounds good, a word that resonates in your bones, a word that feels like truth. This is your energetic signature to the quantum field. This is your declaration of what you are becoming. The more of us who choose this path, who choose to honor ourselves as sacred, the more the collective field shifts. The more the world reflects back a reality where self-love is not radical but natural, where honoring your worth is not selfish but essential, where choosing yourself is understood as the most loving thing you can do for everyone involved. And if you have not yet subscribed, do so now. Not just to stay connected, but to stay coherent, to stay aligned with this frequency of self-worth, self-respect, self-devotion. Because the world will try to pull you back into old patterns. The algorithm will try to distract you. The mind will try to convince you that you were being too idealistic, too unrealistic, too demanding. But when you are anchored in a community of people who are also choosing themselves, who are also walking this path, who are also remembering their worth, you have a greater chance of staying true to your commitment. You have mirrors that reflect back your highest potential instead of your deepest fears. What we're touching on here is just the surface of how your internal choice creates external transformation through quantum mechanics. If you're sensing there are deeper layers to this, you're absolutely right. In my book, Beyond the Frequencies, A Quantum Guide to Consciousness Mastery, I walk you through the complete system of how you shift from unconscious transmission to becoming the conscious broadcast itself, including the specific practices that stabilize your frequency and move you from seeking worthiness to embodying it as your natural state. It's linked in the pinned comment below. The practice of choosing yourself deepens over time. At first, it might feel awkward, unfamiliar, like speaking a language you have not used in years or perhaps have never spoken at all. You will second-guess yourself. You will wonder if you are being too rigid, too unforgiving, too closed off. These doubts are normal. They are the old programming trying to reassert control. They are the fear that if you stop people-pleasing, stop overgiving, stop making yourself small, you will end up alone. But here is what actually happens. When you stop accepting breadcrumbs, when you stop settling for half-hearted affection, when you stop tolerating disrespect disguised as love, you create space. And that space, though it may feel empty at first, is actually the most fertile ground you will ever stand on. In that space, you begin to hear yourself again, the voice that has been buried beneath everyone else's needs and expectations and judgments, the voice that knows what you actually want, what you actually need, what actually brings you alive. That voice has been there all along, waiting patiently for you to quiet the noise long enough to listen. And when you finally do, when you finally give yourself permission to honor what it is saying, everything begins to shift. Not overnight. Not in some dramatic, cinematic transformation, but gradually, steadily, like a river carving its path through stone. You start noticing the relationships that drain you versus the ones that nourish you. You start recognizing the difference between someone who is interested in you and someone who is interested in what you can do for them. You start feeling in your body when something is not aligned, when someone's words do not match their energy, when a situation is asking you to betray yourself to participate. And instead of overriding those signals like you used to, instead of convincing yourself you are being paranoid or too sensitive or too demanding, you trust them. You honor them. You let them guide you toward what is true and away from what is false. This discernment is one of the greatest gifts of choosing yourself. Because when you are committed to self-abandonment, when you are willing to sacrifice your truth for external approval, your inner compass becomes scrambled. You cannot trust your instincts because you have spent so long ignoring them. You cannot hear your intuition because you have spent so long drowning it out with logic and justification and the opinions of others. But the moment you commit to yourself, the moment you decide that your inner knowing matters more than your fear of being alone, or your fear of being wrong, or your fear of being too much, that compass recalibrates. It starts pointing true north again. And true north is always, always toward your highest alignment. If this is resonating, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel so we can continue this conversation together. Now let me tell you something about alignment that most spiritual teachings get wrong. Alignment is not about feeling good all the time. It is not about living in some permanent state of bliss where nothing ever hurts and you never feel doubt or fear or confusion. Alignment is about congruence. It is about your actions matching your values, your words matching your truth, your external reality reflecting your internal commitment. You can be aligned and still feel grief. You can be aligned and still feel angry. You can be aligned and still feel lost. The difference is that when you are aligned, you are not abandoning yourself in the middle of those feelings. You are staying present. You are meeting yourself with compassion instead of criticism. You are allowing the emotion to move through you instead of numbing it or bypassing it or pretending it is not there. This is where the real transformation happens. Not in the avoidance of difficult emotions, but in the willingness to be with them without making them mean something about your worth. You can feel heartbroken and still know you are whole. You can feel rejected and still know you are valuable. You can feel confused and still know you are exactly where you need to be. Because your worth is not conditional on your emotional state. Your worth is not dependent on external validation. Your worth is inherent. It is the ground of your being. It is the foundation that remains no matter what storms pass through. When you anchor into this truth, when you stop outsourcing your sense of value to people and circumstances and achievements, you become unshakable not in the sense that nothing bothers you, in the sense that nothing can displace you from your center. You can be moved, you can be touched, you can be affected by what happens around you and to you. But you cannot be uprooted. You cannot be convinced that you are less than you are. You cannot be talked out of your truth by someone who refuses to see it. This is the power of self-love. This is the fortress you build not to keep the world out, but to keep yourself in, to keep yourself tethered to what is real when everything around you is trying to pull you into illusion. And here is the paradox. The more committed you are to yourself, the more available you become for genuine connection with others. Because you are no longer seeking completion. You are no longer looking for someone to fill the void or fix what is broken or validate your existence. You are already whole, already complete, already enough. And from that place of sufficiency, you can meet another person without agenda, without need, without the desperate grasping that masquerades as intimacy. You can love without losing yourself. You can give without depleting yourself. You can open without abandoning your boundaries. This is mature love. This is conscious relationship. And it is only possible when both people have done the work of choosing themselves first. Take a moment and share in the comments what shifted for you as you heard this. What old pattern are you recognizing? What new choice are you ready to make? Your words create ripples in the field that support not just your transformation, but everyone reading them. Most people skip this step. They move from relationship to relationship, hoping that the next person will be the one who finally makes them feel whole. But no one can make you feel whole if you are not already cultivating wholeness within yourself. No one can love you into self-love. No one can respect you into self-respect. These are inside jobs. They require your participation, your commitment, your daily choice to show up for yourself, even when it is uncomfortable, even when it is easier to look away, even when the old patterns are screaming for you to return to familiar suffering. Because familiar suffering feels safer than unfamiliar freedom. Let that land. Your system knows how to navigate pain. It has strategies for it. It has coping mechanisms. It has a whole architecture built around surviving in environments that do not honor you. But freedom, true freedom, requires you to dismantle that architecture. It requires you to step into the unknown without knowing what will catch you. And the not knowing is terrifying. So the mind creates stories. It tells you that if you set this boundary, they will leave. It tells you that if you speak this truth, you will be rejected. It tells you that if you choose yourself, you will end up alone. And maybe some of those things will happen. Maybe some people will leave. Maybe some relationships will end. Maybe there will be a period of aloneness. But aloneness is not the same as loneliness. Aloneness is the space where you remember yourself. Loneliness is the ache of self-abandonment. You have been lonely in rooms full of people. You have been lonely in relationships where you were physically present but spiritually absent. You have been lonely because you were not allowing yourself to be seen, to be known, to be met in your fullness. And that loneliness, that soul-deep isolation, is far more painful than any aloneness you will experience when you choose to honor yourself, because when you are alone but aligned, you have your own company. You have your own presence. You have the sacred intimacy of being truly, fully, unapologetically yourself without having to edit or perform or hide. And that is the foundation of everything. Pause here. Breathe into what is coming up for you. Notice if there is resistance. Notice if there is fear. Notice if part of you is already planning how to apply this to everyone except yourself. How to give this wisdom to others while continuing to abandon your own heart. That is the trap. That is how the pattern perpetuates. You cannot give what you do not have. You cannot teach self-love while practicing self-betrayal. So before you rush forward, before you move on to the next thing, ask yourself this question. Where in my life right now am I choosing something or someone over my own truth? Where am I saying yes when I mean no? Where am I staying when I mean to go? Where am I silencing myself when I need to speak? These are not comfortable questions. They will bring up things you have been avoiding. They will illuminate the ways you have been complicit in your own suffering. But discomfort is not the enemy. Discomfort is the signal that you are touching something real, something that needs your attention, something that is ready to transform if you are willing to face it, so do not turn away. Do not distract yourself. Do not minimize what is being revealed. This is the work. This is where choosing yourself becomes more than a concept and transforms into a lived experience. Let me tell you what happens in the quantum field when you make this shift at the deepest level. Your frequency stabilizes. You stop oscillating between worthiness and unworthiness, between confidence and doubt, between self-love and self-attack. You become coherent in your energy signature. And coherence, in quantum terms, means that all parts of you are synchronized, aligned, vibrating at the same frequency. When you are coherent, you emit a clear signal to the universe, You are no longer sending mixed messages. You are no longer saying, "I am worthy" with your words while broadcasting. "I am not enough" with your energy. The field reads coherence. It responds to coherence. And when you are coherent in your self-worth, the field organizes itself around that frequency. This is not manifestation in the way it is commonly taught, where you try to manipulate reality into giving you what you want. This is alignment. This is embodiment. This is becoming the frequency of what you desire so completely that the universe has no choice but to reflect it back to you. Not because you are forcing anything, because you are finally in harmony with the natural laws that govern reality. You are no longer fighting against yourself. You are no longer trying to be something you are not. You are simply, radically, unapologetically being who you are. And that beingness is magnetic. People will feel the shift in you even if they cannot name it. They will sense that something has changed, that you are no longer available for the old dynamics, that you have moved into a different frequency. Some will rise to meet you there. They will respect your boundaries. They will honor your truth. They will celebrate your evolution. These are your people. These are the relationships that are meant to continue. But some will resist. They will test you. They will push against your new boundaries to see if you are serious, to see if you will revert back to the version of you that was easier to control. And this is where your commitment to yourself will be tested. This is where you will have to choose, again and again, to honor your truth even when it costs you something, even when it feels uncomfortable, even when it would be easier to go back to the way things were. Do not go back, no matter how tempting it is, no matter how much easier it seems. Going back is not the same as returning home. Going back is exile from yourself, and you have spent enough of your life in exile. You have spent enough years wandering in the wilderness of other people's expectations, trying to find your way back to a version of yourself that never existed, because you were always trying to be what others needed instead of who you are. That ends now. That ends the moment you choose yourself. That ends the moment you decide that your inner peace is more valuable than external approval. This does not mean you become cold or closed or indifferent to others. It means you become discerning. It means you stop giving your energy to people and situations that do not reciprocate, that do not honor, that do not see you. It means you start investing in relationships that are mutual, that are nourishing, that are built on respect and authenticity rather than obligation and performance. And yes, this might mean your circle gets smaller. It might mean you spend more time alone than you used to. But the quality of your connections will deepen immeasurably because you are no longer filling your life with people who only want access to what you can give them. You are surrounding yourself with people who value who you are. The moment you choose yourself, you also choose a different relationship with time. You stop rushing. You stop forcing. You stop trying to make things happen according to some external timeline that was never yours to begin with. You start trusting the unfolding. You start honoring your own rhythm, your own pace, your own process. You give yourself permission to move slowly when you need to move slowly, to rest when you need to rest, to say not yet when something is asking you to commit before you are ready. This is not procrastination. This is not fear. This is wisdom. This is listening to the intelligence of your own body, your own intuition, your own inner knowing. Your body has been trying to tell you things for years. It has been sending you signals that something is not right, that someone is not safe, that a situation is not aligned, but you have been trained to override those signals. You have been taught that your thoughts are more trustworthy than your feelings, that your logic is more reliable than your instincts, and so you have ignored the tightness in your chest, the knot in your stomach, the heaviness in your limbs. You have pushed through when your body was begging you to stop. You have said yes when every cell in your being was screaming no, and your body, exhausted from being ignored, eventually stopped sending clear signals. It learned that you were not listening, so it started speaking in louder ways, through illness, through pain, through exhaustion that no amount of rest could cure. This is not punishment, this is communication. Your body is not your enemy, it is your most loyal ally, trying desperately to get your attention, to bring you back into alignment, to remind you that you are not a machine designed for productivity and performance. You are a living, breathing, feeling being that requires rest and care and honoring. Choosing yourself means choosing to listen to your body again. It means reestablishing that sacred communication. It means asking, "What do you need right now?" and actually pausing long enough to hear the answer. It means honoring your limits instead of constantly pushing past them. It means recognizing that rest is not weakness, that boundaries are not selfishness, that saying no is not failure. These are the lies that keep you trapped in patterns of self-abandonment. These are the beliefs that were installed in you by systems and people and cultures that benefit from your exhaustion, from your compliance, from your willingness to give more than you have. But you do not owe anyone your depletion. You do not owe anyone access to your energy when you have nothing left to give. You do not owe anyone an explanation for why you are choosing yourself. This is your life. Your one wild, precious, brief life. And you are allowed to live it in a way that honors your truth, that protects your peace, that celebrates your existence. You are allowed to build a life that feels good to you, even if it looks nothing like what others expected. You are allowed to disappoint people if staying in their good graces requires you to abandon yourself. You are allowed to be misunderstood. You are allowed to be judged. You are allowed to be called selfish by people who benefited from your self-sacrifice. None of that changes your worth. None of that diminishes your value. None of that means you made the wrong choice. If this message is landing in your heart, consider revisiting this video tomorrow morning before your day begins. Letting these frequencies recalibrate your system when it matters most. And if someone in your life needs to hear this, share it with them. When you transmit these truths outward, you're not just helping them. You're reinforcing the frequency in your own field, creating a feedback loop of coherence that accelerates both your transformations. So when the night grows heavy again, because it will, when your heart temporarily forgets its value, because it might, place your hand upon your chest and feel the steady beat beneath your palm. Remember, you are the companion who has never left, the guardian who has never faltered, the sanctuary you carry within, no matter where you go or who you lose or what falls apart around you. Do not abandon the essence that stayed present when everything else dissolved. Do not turn your back on the consciousness that kept you alive when living felt unbearable. That part of you is not just worthy of love. That part of you is love itself. And the moment you remember that, the moment you truly choose that, reality has no option but to change for you. Now here's what you need to understand about this internal shift and why it creates such rapid external transformation. Your nervous system holds the key to everything we've discussed today. When you're trapped in survival mode, constantly abandoning yourself to keep others comfortable, your system cannot receive the frequency of self-worth, no matter how much you affirm it. I've created a complete guide on resetting your nervous system so these shifts can actually land in your body and create lasting change. Watch that next to understand why you can't manifest anything if you don't reset your nervous system first.